All right, we are live. Twin Peaks Live, Twin Peaks Season 4. If you have any questions about what exactly is going on here, we will be back in a few minutes to answer your questions. But for right now, I have to do a little bit of maintenance, so I'm going to put a countdown timer on. Here we go.
All right.
Here we are. So this is a first for us. We're just testing this out. We're all three of us are fans of Twin Peaks. Let me turn that volume down. All three of us are fans of Twin Peaks. So let me introduce Jeffrey Orthwine first. You're in California, Jeff, right?
I am, yeah. I'm in the San Francisco area.
San Francisco, and you are an actual filmmaker.
Yes. Yes.
Not just, just a fan of of Twin Peaks,
right.
But you're an actual filmmaker. I mean, you're a real filmmaker. As a matter of fact, we met about 3 years ago in California, Cupertino.
Yep.
And
yeah, that was just before our film came out.
Your film is Boca the Movie. That's with
yes.
.com, and I bought it based on that, and I watched it, and I could see a little David Lynch influence, Twin Peaks influence in it, just a tad here and there.
Yeah, I wouldn't deny that. It's not it's definitely not a Lynchian film, but
no,
yeah,
it's not.
It would. But yeah, I would have to admit to a certain influence, sure.
Absolutely. So we're here to talk about Twin Peaks. Now, we're not announcing Season 4. Twin Peaks Season 4 is the Facebook group. It's called Twin Peaks Season 4. So we're not announcing that. That's not what we said. And we are live. We're going to discuss Twin Peaks. I think we'll probably start with Season 3. And then we might have references to Season 1 and 2 as well. And Fire Walk with Me. We can go wherever we want. I mean, that's the thing. So just generally speaking, what did you think before Season 3 started, when the announcement came that Season 3 was actually going to happen? What did you think at that point? The anticipation? I mean, I had a lot of anticipation for it.
For sure, yeah. I mean, definitely excitement, and the alignment with the 25 years later was just sort of a cosmic coincidence, or just perfect, somewhere between the two. So no, it was very much for me excited that we'd be going back to that world. And very much a question mark of what it would look like.
So all those years waiting since version 1, since Season 1 and 2 came out, when Season 1 and 2 came out, and then there was a break, and then Lynch did Fire Walk with Me. And then after Fire Walk with Me, I thought that was the end. I never really thought there would be another continuation, because Fire Walk with Me had an ending with Laura and Dale Cooper in the Black Lodge with Laura's angels hovering above her.
Yeah, I actually thought that the ending of Fire Walk with Me was an amazing closure to the series. And I understand why maybe some people didn't feel that way. And it's a rough movie, so it's hard to watch at times, but particularly the ending was the redemption of Laura Palmer that you were looking for a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jane, what do you think about Fire Walk with Me?
I loved it, totally loved it, and it has that grittiness and like a real insight into what was actually going on that couldn't happen, I think, on regular TV. And then when they announced Season 3, knowing that it was going to be on cable, that just kind of leaves it wide open in terms of what you can say and what you can do compared to when the season, compared to Season 1, which was like, it was shocking at the time, but you were still on network television. So I loved Fire Walk with Me. I still, can watch that movie over and over again.
So when I remember when it came out, Laura Palmer, Cheryl Lee said it's a tough, raw film. Absolutely is. Absolutely is.
Yeah.
In my particular case, Fire Walk With Me to this day is my favorite Twin Peaks vehicle. I like it better than season 1 and 2, and I like it better than season 3 as a whole piece.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jeff? How does it stand in your hierarchy of Twin Peaks stuff?
Well, I'm probably more in the purest sense of, the first season of Twin Peaks is such a kind of perfect set of episodes in terms of setting up the world, setting up the tone, the characters, everything. But I did love Firewalk With Me. I actually Firewalk With Me is the first thing I ever was exposed to in Twin Peaks.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, which is a backwards way to get into it. I was just, I was in college. And I was just over at some friends' houses, and they put on. I was like, all right, let's see what this is about. I had never really seen a David Lynch film at that point, and it's a jarring introduction. And it was. I mean, at that time, it was mostly nonsensical to me. I was like, I'm not getting it. I don't know what the storyline here is. I don't know. I was appreciating elements of it, but it was mostly a little shocking and a little confusing. So it wasn't until later that I went back and started getting my hands on the VHS tapes of Twin Peaks. And that's when I really kind of dove into the series and the whole world of it. So then I went back and watched Firewalk With Me, and it was, when I watched it again, it was almost as if I hadn't seen it the first time. Like, I had just forgotten everything. There was so many, half the characters in Firewalk With Me aren't in the series. You spend a lot of time with Kiefer Sutherland and Chris Isaac, and they're great, but it's a different thing. It feels like a companion piece to me, which it is. And so when I viewed it a second time, with a full understanding of what had come before, I did love it. It was amazing. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and it's tough. So it's not my favorite piece of Twin Peaks, but I definitely love what it is.
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever talked to somebody who saw Fire Walk With Me before they saw the series. My introduction to David Lynch was Blue Velvet before Twin Peaks. That was the first thing I saw with Lynch.
I guess I'd seen Eraserhead at that point, but
Yeah.
I hadn't. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Eraserhead.
Yeah. Eraserhead was my introduction, and I was a teenager, and it scared the heck out of me. Actually,
Yeah.
Wow.
No, absolutely. Eraserhead is absolutely one of the strangest films that, of all times.
I was like, what is this?
But so the thing I found about, especially in retrospect, is I liked some of the episodes of season 1 and 2, and almost exclusively I liked the ones that David Lynch were involved with. For example, I couldn't have cared less about Evelyn and James, right? Remember in season 2? I couldn't have cared less about that whole thing.
It's like this whole 5-episode arc
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the first 2 or 3 episodes of season 1 and the first 2 episodes of season 2 and the last episode of season 2 are my favorites.
Yeah. I think season 2 has a lot of strength in it. The Evelyn James plot line is like a jug handle where I don't think they know what to do with James, and they're just trying to find something interesting, and they try valiantly to find something interesting, but it didn't really come together. And they're kind of treading water, laying the groundwork for Wyndham Earle, who's fantastic.
He absolutely was.
Wyndham Earle is great. Kenneth Welsh is amazing. And there is a little bit of I don't want to say bookending, because there's a lot more in season 2 than just the beginning and the end for me. And I think while I share your appreciation for the ones that were actually episodes that were directed by David Lynch, there was some amazing episodes directed by Caleb Deschanel and Stephen Gyllenhaal and Leslie Linka Glotter. They put in some pretty amazing work as well, which in some ways some of those episodes feel to me a little more focused on the plot of kind of getting to where we're going, which is beneficial. I mean, I love the way Lynch approaches stuff. Sometimes you can watch a guy sweep a floor for 8 minutes, so it goes both ways sometimes.
No, it absolutely does. The thing about that I didn't really realize until season 3 is that Lynch was hardly a part of season 2.
Right.
And he didn't like season 2. He actually says he hated season 2. So he didn't write any episodes of season 2, which was surprising to me because I thought he was involved with the Giant, the Giant showing up at the beginning of season 1 in its first 2 episodes, and also at the end, going back to the Black Lodge. But he's on record saying he actually hated it. And the reason was because ABC had all these different directors and stuff, and they weren't his vision of it. And and what he did was he did Fire Walk with Me, which he was in complete control of. That was his response to being, overrun for season 2.
Well, I think, my understanding is also that, there was tremendous pressure to solve the mystery. He had created such a potent mystery that people wanted to see it solved. And so having your hand forced that way, I can see that his reaction to that might be negative. I also understand that, the idea was for the mystery to not be solved initially, was that you were going to have this sort of open-ended plot line that would eventually recede kind of into the background as you kind of spend more time in the town. Was the initial approach. Obviously that had to get that needed to get changed once the public got a hold of it, and that's another interesting thing to look at culturally, though, is you don't create art in a vacuum, and once it is shared with the public, it becomes interactive, even over the course of the slow moving course of creating a television show in the early 90s.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
And I think there's a lot to like in season 2. I can see that he wouldn't want to, if he was resisting tying up all the loose threads. I get that, but I think there's still a lot to like, and it feels true to what the series was.
So we got a comment. Jamie Windrig says, my first David Lynch movie was The Elephant Man. I was 8. I loved him ever since. That's a tough film to watch as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that happy.
No, it's a phenomenal film, but
it is. It's an excellent film.
What an intro.
8 is early, for that. And I mean, honestly, every person that I've shown Twin Peaks to or anything from Lynch, there's an adjustment period for anyone who hasn't seen one of his films before, because it's just a different approach, and I think that his lack of need to tie up all the plot lines, as was very evident in season 3, is kind of hard to accept if you're used to more traditional storytelling.
Right.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. So the interesting thing about first off, I didn't know that was what was going on during season 2 as it was happening. When I watched it,
right.
Had no idea that Lynch. But I found myself attracted to certain episodes, and then in retrospect, it was the ones that Lynch did. The first episode was good when I first saw it. This is live back in the early 90s. But what really hooked me was Cooper's dream and entering the Black Lodge, the Red Room, for the first time.
That's like episode 3 or 4?
Yeah, I think episode 3, at the end of episode 3.
Yeah.
That's what really, really hooked me. So then I said, well, why is that one so, well, because of the surrealness, the fact that, okay, people were talking kind of staccato backwards and they were walking weird and stuff. And there was a little dwarf that was dancing peculiarly. And I love the fact that, okay, what is America thinking about this? I thought about that, we started with the murder mystery and all of a sudden we got this another dimension opening up. Well, at that point, it was just a dream. We had no idea it was an actual dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of had to be couched in the concept of a dream sequence.
Initially, absolutely.
Because of the contemporary audience. Like a dream sequence, we'll understand. You can connect to that. Television series have had dream sequences before. We understand that construct. And then to slowly kind of peel away the layers of, well, it wasn't actually a dream, is actually sort of a brilliant way to introduce larger concepts to a mainstream audience.
No, it absolutely was. So we got another comment from Jamie. Says the media hyped up the "Who Killed Laura Palmer" line so much that the suits at ABC thought that they wanted it solved. I think the public was also interested in getting that solved.
I heard that Gorbachev was a big fan and was very insistent on being told immediately when the word got out.
You mean the Russians were involved that long
Even
ago?
The Russians back then,
I had no idea.
Right? Yeah, Gorbachev fan of Twin Peaks.
That's amazing.
Pretty sure that's true.
Well, no, I've heard that. I've heard that too. There was some kind of a call. Who in the heck knows?
Right. Yeah. On the red phone.
But anyway, so when that ended, I never in a million years thought that we would. I mean, after Fire Walk With Me, I was so thrilled to hear about Fire Walk With Me, even though it was a prequel. Now, the fact that it was a prequel was the reason that Frost wasn't involved. Because Mark Frost did not want to do a prequel. He wanted to do a continuation at the end from season 2, and Lynch said, no, I'm going to be in control of this. It's going to be a prequel, and that's why Frost wasn't involved with that one. And then, of course, in season 3, for better or for worse, Lynch directed all episodes and wrote all episodes, sometimes with Frost, sometimes by himself. So he wasn't going to make the mistake of what happened with, he felt it was taken away from him, or it was wrestled away from him from ABC. But of course, that was a different time. That was regular television.
Yeah.
It wasn't even hardly any cable in those days.
Yeah. Well, in dealing with that format, I've also read interpretations about how Twin Peaks was one of the first series to really kind of craft even just the segments within the 60-minute episode really kind of noting on the script level, this is where the first commercial break is going to be, really having act closures and that. And I don't know, I haven't read enough television scripts from the 80s to really compare. But it does feel like a lot of those, it does feel well constructed. So I can see with that level of control over how the story is going to be told, even down to when do we cut to the ad for dishwasher soap, that he would want more complete control over the series, and why it would take 25 years to get it.
Well, I don't even know. I mean, from what I understand, when Lynch and Frost got back for season 3 this last time, about 4 or 5 years ago, they had forgotten about the 25-year thing. From what they said, they had. I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised.
As fans, we didn't. But, first off, many of us have watched and rewatched season 1 and 2, and I bought the DVD set multiple times. I had the first season on VHS, which I still have, and then I bought the original, another DVD box set, and then right before season 3 was announced, I got the Blu-ray version of season 1 and 2 and Fire Walk with Me. And then I think it said something like the whole story or the complete story, and it wasn't, because season 3 was already in the works at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least did they give you the actual network pilot, not the?
I don't remember.
That was the thing, because, like I said, I when I first pursued this, it was right after it aired, and it was released on VHS, and I remember going to the video store to rent the tapes, and the season 1 doesn't have the actual aired network pilot. The VHS tapes had that basically, when they shot the pilot, it was the backup plan is that it would be available as a standalone piece for European markets and other international markets. So they shot kind of a very much a tacked on ending to the pilot, which is this very sort of dreamy Bob comes out of nowhere, and you kind of get to see him. But anyway, so I hadn't even seen the actual correct pilot until much later, when it was released. Or no, Bravo was airing them. That's right. I remember another situation where I was like hunkered down. I was like, oh, Bravo's going to air the actual network aired version of the pilot. So
I think I have both versions. I mean, I know I do somewhere.
Yeah.
That's when Bob says, I'll kill you with my dirt bag or something, or death bag.
Yeah, I believe that's what happens. Yeah. And I mean, they're very similar until there's this whole other ending,
right,
right. And I'd heard that, but I didn't even know when the whole other ending started. So just finally getting to see the original pilot was a success.
Absolutely. So
tracking down all the different versions is, it sounds like you've got a good catalog of them.
Well, I bought the original VHS tapes. I remember, because I didn't have I don't know if I didn't record them or something. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Initially, I had a recorder, but I didn't record them, so I went and bought the VHS tapes. I went to Columbia to buy them, I remember. And I got the first season. I still have those. But so the anticipation of season 3, when it was announced, when Lynch and Frost both came on Twitter at the same time and said that Gum You Like is coming back in style simultaneously, we heard rumors prior to that, for maybe about a year, that this might be happening, a 25-year anniversary. And then they did that damn tweet together. And the anticipation, waiting from that point, because they had to film it at that point. They didn't film it. They had to film it, and then they had to, edit it and all that. The anticipation was incredible for me. I mean, after all those years, I never thought it was going to happen. So I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes. I was thrilled. And then some places in the middle it got meandering, and then at the end. So at the end, what did you think? When it finished, how did you feel about season 3?
I mean, season 3 it's a long season, honestly.
Very long.
And it covers a lot of ground. It opens a lot of doors and doesn't walk through all of them. The ending I like quite a bit. I feel like I still need to go back and watch it again and kind of consume it a little bit more. So I definitely like the way it ended. Both as a well, I'm not sure I'd call it closure for the story,
for sure.
But if it is the ending, it's sort of a great ending, but not a simple one.
Well, do you think the ending for season 3 was better or the same as the ending for Fire Walk with Me? In general,
I think they're vastly different.
I think they are too.
I better or worse, I don't know. It's 2 apples and oranges to me. They're Fire Walk with Me, like I said earlier, I felt like that was the closure that you want for the Laura Palmer story.
Right.
And the ending of season 3 closure is not a word I would use.
No, not at all. Well, as soon as I saw the last episode 18, I went on Twitter and said, "Okay, we've seen the first episode of season 4."
Right.
That's what it seemed to me like. The first, episode 18 was the first episode of season 4, with the Dale, Richard, and Carrie, Paige, Laura / that whole thing in Odessa, Texas. Is that where it was?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a whole new storyline. They went through mile 430, and they said it might not. Everything might change. Well, everything did change. Everything changed.
Yep.
Diane saw a copy of her, a doppelganger of herself, or a tulpa of herself at the service station. She was watching.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt I agree with you. The ending for Firewalk with Me was, I like that ending. I really like that. And if we never got any more, that would have been completely fine. The ending for season 3, I like it, but I can see where it can continue.
For sure. Yeah, no, it definitely, I think to a degree, there's a little bit of, not unlike the first rounds with Twin Peaks, but in season 3, the ending is a little bit of a lampooning current television culture of, there's these big event series, and they end with these huge cliffhangers. And the end of season 3 is a cliffhanger of sorts. But like I said, it's almost a satire of a cliffhanger, or I don't want to say a deconstruction of it, but a sort of here's a cliffhanger that is going to tease you in an uncomfortable way, not like where is season, like the binge watch mentality of like just start season 4 right now.
Right.
It's more of a, you kind of get knocked off your seat a little bit. And so I don't know if that was part of the approach to it, from Lynch and Frost, but there is an element of like, okay, they're kind of messing with us.
No, I agree. I mean, the massive cliffhanger that was the end of season 2, which wasn't in their control. They thought there was going to be a season 3 then, and there wasn't. Yeah. They wrote the episode based on the fact that there was a cliffhanger. That was a horrible ending. I mean, I love the ending, but it was horrible. That tension is that they can't end this way.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
After spending all these time with these characters, we don't know what the heck happened.
Yeah.
With Cooper and the doppelganger that got out. That was incredibly painful to live with for 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree for sure. I totally with everything you said, and at the same time, there's part of it that feels like, if you view the series in the most traditional sense, which it definitely plays with this concept of the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. This is. People always go back to it's just the age-old story of good versus evil, which is a bit tiresome in a lot of ways. And I think Twin Peaks is a little more complex than that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
What I found astounding is that, here is a story, and in 1991, is that when it ended? Evil triumphs, and you just have to sit on that for a while. Maybe, and that wasn't the intended ending, but if that became the de facto ending for 25 years,
right?
I kind of always loved that. Not that it's necessarily the perfect ending for the thing, but as Twin Peaks being part of the culture and the media conversation, having that exist, alongside what NYPD Blue and whatever else was happening in the early 90s.
Another Mark Frost vehicle.
Right, or
not NYPD Blue. It was
that was Stephen Bochco, I think. But
Stephen Bochco. But he was Hill Street Blues,
Hill Street Blues,
the predecessor.
But I'm just, what I mean is like, so when Twin Peaks ends in the early 90s and it's being aired alongside, 30 something was coming to an end at that point, or,
right.
Like this is the environment that it's in. So while maybe not a perfect ending, I think it has it's that whole, the Steve Jobs line, I guess, of, putting a dent in the universe kind of a thing, of like that actually kind of knocks the axis of where we are off its trajectory a little bit, so that we can start exploring stories in a different way. And of course, The Sopranos gets a lot of appreciation for this, because they kind of created a new way of what you can do with a story.
Right. Right.
So yeah, while the ending of season 2, regardless of whether I like it or dislike it, I love that became part of the international kind of conversation about how we tell stories on television.
It absolutely did. Twin Peaks was absolutely, it influenced so many shows after. It was so far ahead of its time, even though it was restricted. Yeah. I mean, the killing of Maddie Ferguson on screen for network television, that was harsh to watch at that time.
Yeah.
It really was.
Oh, yeah. That is brutal. Yeah. And that's brutal in a very explicit way.
Right.
That scene, but the scene that I think has maybe had the biggest impact for me is Leland's death scene, when he's released, and I mean, Ray Wise was just phenomenal.
He was phenomenal.
He is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But in that scene, watching Bob release him, and then have him go through all the realization of what he'd been complicit to involuntarily before. I mean, that emotionally, you're just watching an actor act. It's not as explicit as the Maddie Ferguson scene,
right?
But that is a crushing, devastating scene.
I agree with you.
That kind of kicks me in the gut harder than some of the more explicit stuff.
So speaking of that scene, going, now knowing what we know with Twin Peaks, do you blame Leland for what happened to Laura as Leland Palmer, not as possessed by Bob, as the father of Laura? Do you hold him accountable?
Well, I guess I subscribe to the mythos of the show, in that no, Bob was an occupying spirit. And I don't hold Leland responsible.
Even though Leland let him in, because Bob he doesn't, people have said he didn't possess Laura. Laura refused to let him in, and she chose death over that, where Leland said he let him in as a young boy. So even though he let him in, I have to agree with you. I mean, does he have any culpability? I don't know. I mean, it was obviously Bob. Every time you saw the killing, we saw Bob come out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Leland invited him in as a boy, and I think this dovetails with one of the major themes of the show, and arguably Lynch's career, that the foolish mistakes that you make when you're young have devastating consequences. And obviously young Leland, however old he was, 6, 8, had no concept of what he was inviting in or the consequences of that. And paying for those mistakes is devastating.
Right.
But like I said, I think it also it ties into some of the other thematic stuff for me for Lynch. When you look at the character of Leland, and who is simultaneously a loving father and a rapist murderer,
right.
And that kind of duality in the soul and in the personage of somebody, and and particularly in the context of being a parent, is something that I think pops up a lot. It was obviously a central part of Eraserhead, and seeing the father figure as both father and monster, literally turning, in a moment from one to the other, I think is kind of at the core of Twin Peaks and a lot of the Lynch material.
Yeah, I agree. It's obviously a common theme with Lynch, for sure. So Leland had such a minuscule role in season 3. His entire lines were "Save Laura."
Right. Well, he's just sort of in the Black Lodge and not going to get out.
Well, but what was that? One of the things that I feel and I've been discussing for years is I don't think that those things that we saw in the Black Lodge, the Laura lookalikes, were actually Laura. First off, they said, "I feel like I know her." And the dancing dwarf introduced Laura as, "She's my cousin," but doesn't she look exactly like Laura Palmer? So I don't think those were Laura, and that's one of the reasons Leland says he told Cooper in the lodge, "Find Laura." I think the Laura at the end of Fire Walk With Me was the real Laura. Maybe Carrie Page. Mm-hmm. But whatever those other entities were, whatever they were, tulpas, or they weren't doppelgangers, because we saw that.
Right.
We saw her doppelganger when she had the white eyes and she was screaming.
Sure.
Whatever they were, I don't think they were the real Laura. I think they were something else.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That is definitely something that I need to go back and focus on more explicitly. But I think it again, and doppelgangers are everywhere. And again, it kind of goes back to this notion of, in the form of Leland, the father and monster. He's a doppelganger of himself, and there's a duality to everything and everyone. And so, once you get in the Black Lodge, you don't know what to believe or what to trust.
Exactly. That's one of the things. So we saw Leland's doppelganger in the Black Lodge. He had the white eyes, and he said, "I did not kill anybody" in the first 2 seasons. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And it's true. Well, he did. That was his doppelganger. But I think what we saw in season 3 was the real Leland, not a doppelganger of him. He stuck there for whatever reason because of his association with Bob or whatever. I mean, who knows? Everything is thrown out of kilter when you enter the Black Lodge. Reality, of course, just the whole concept of the Black Lodge makes you suspend belief in reality. I hope.
Well, it's a different reality.
Yeah, it's a different reality. I hope there's no, little oil pit somewhere in my woods that if I go there a certain time, that I'm going to enter into another lodge. Well, I always do take my phone with me just in case, so I could call back, say, "Hey, I'm in the Black Lodge."
There's no service. There's no service.
No cell service. I don't think so. No tweeting from the lodge.
You've got full bars, but there's no service.
Yeah.
That's what the Black Lodge is.
So we have a couple of comments. Radu says that tweet was epic, the one that Mark Frost and David Lynch did simultaneously. And Jamie says the ending left me wanting, the ending of season 3. And Radu says Twin Peaks does not end. It's like a living map. Remember that living map that Hawk had in season 3?
Yeah.
That was an interesting, with the black corn or the burnt corn. Yeah. And then he also says the giant first appeared after Dale Cooper got shot. That's right, the first episode of season 2. From that point on, was it all nothing but the dream of a dying man struggling with regret? Now, here's the thing about the dream. I keep hearing different comments about the dream. Dreams can explain anything. Okay, we've all had dreams that were impossible. Just very surreal. They can explain absolutely anything. So the idea that it was a dream kind of is a cop-out to me, because it's easy to explain that way. Oh, it's just a dream. So anything can happen in dreams.
Yeah, I also feel like, it feels like a cop out to me. The idea that you would do a season of a show with a character in real life and then just dump into a dream, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Right.
And there have been shows that that's what Dallas was taking the task for, right? They
JR.
That was a dream.
They had a whole season where they were like it was not going well, so they just kind of started the new season with like, oh, that whole thing, that was just a dream for a year.
Right.
So it's possible, but
maybe there's segments
like Wizard of Oz, right? Wasn't that just a dream, Dorothy?
Right. Well, that was better.
Right.
That was interesting. The Wizard of Oz, of course, the classic.
That was that way, and it was set up that way from the start.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in season 3. There's a lot of disconnected parts. I mean, it isn't like it starts here and it goes around the turn and it goes here. There's a lot of, as I call it, I mean, I've mentioned this before, I look at season 1 and 2 in Fire Walk with Me as like a Salvador Dali painting. But I look at season 3 as a Jackson Pollock painting. Where he has all this stuff he just throws on the screen and it connects, it makes sense somehow. I mean, it does. Jackson Pollock paintings are fantastic, but they're not the same as Dali. Dali is surreal, but somehow they all still, it's smooth and it makes sense. Where season 3 was more like all these little pieces and segments. And I mean, whatever happened to the glass box in New York?
I was going to say, what about those 2 kids in New York? I never did quite figure out how that
so
all
many little teeny stories that.
I love those scenes though, with her bringing him the coffee and then him, Oh,
it was great.
Clearly, like visually fascinating, but I'm still trying to figure out, like, what happened.
And the American Girl in the mauve room, that whole sequence with Mother coming and
unbelievable sequence.
Cooper going through the electrical socket.
Visually,
and ending up in Dougie's house. I love season 3. I mean, season 3 as a whole unit, I really, really loved segments of it a lot. And I have to, I think I like it the best as far as between that and season 1 and 2. Just as a whole, once again, as a whole, I think there's brilliant parts in season 1 and 2. I love the Giant. I love the Red Room. I loved all that stuff. Wyndham Earle. Where'd he go? He got stuck in the Black Lodge, I guess. He was a great character.
I was hoping to see some Wyndham Earle in season 3.
Yeah.
That would have been nice.
Chris Isaac.
Yeah. I was a little confused, but like, wow, they've brought on all these actors. They've, are introducing so many new characters, and and a lot of them are great. But I was like, I would have liked to have seen Agent Chester Desmond again. Check in with him.
I don't think he's that busy.
Wherever he might be.
I don't think he's that busy. The actor, I don't think he's not doing any television or movies that I know of, and I don't think he's had any albums out for years, so I don't think he's that busy. But
well, I think that Lynch has talked about liking mystery.
Yes.
And the thing is, the moment you solve the mystery, it's gone. And I think that and fire is a great metaphor for that. Fire is a great thing, and then you put it out, and it's done.
No.
So I think he prefers to start fires.
That's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it. He likes to start fires. That's what season 3 was, a bunch of fires he started.
That's what season 3 is. Yeah, and by not only not solving those, but like not even sticking with them for very long. In some cases, you get to have that wonder and tension of a mystery that never goes out. I wasn't necessarily captivated by all of the kind of threads that were woven into season 3, and at a certain point, I got used to like, oh, we're probably never going to see that person again.
Right. So tell me one of the threads that you weren't, or one or two of the threads that you weren't enthralled with for season 3. I have a couple.
Um,
How about Dougie?
well, Dougie, they weren't going to ignore. Dougie isn't somebody who they brought in for an episode and then sort of cast aside after one episode. The Dougie storyline, I never felt like there was quite enough meat there to fill the time that we spent with him.
Right, I agree.
There was some great elements of Dougie, but it was also kind of played for laughs. And after a certain amount of episodes, you've done the joke. Like we're not still getting laughter out of this. So where are we going with it? So yeah, for me, Dougie didn't run as many miles as maybe the show would have liked.
Right, yeah, I would have saw, Dougie initially, first off, we're talking about Dougie Coop, not Dougie. Dougie was only in the one scene, the real Dougie with Jade.
Sure.
And then he was gone. So I'd like to have seen where he came from, for one thing. How him and Janie E hooked up initially. How I presume Mr. C made the tulpa. But yeah, I think I could have used a lot less Dougie. I liked his character, but it was too much Dougie. The balance between Cooper and Dougie was way, way off. I mean, we should have had Cooper introduced, I think, earlier, the real Coop.
The benefit of Dougie for me is that, again, we've all been waiting 25 years, and so much of what you're waiting for is to see Agent Cooper.
Yes.
Right.
And you see him in the Black Lodge and earlier in season 3, but he's in that Black Lodge dynamic.
Right.
So you want to see him back in Twin Peaks. There's a denial of that to an abusive degree in season 3. We're not going to give you Cooper yet. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. So the benefit of it is when Cooper comes back, like that was a moment that was 25 years and X amount of episodes.
Absolutely. I am the FBI.
That's just a phenomenal line, delivered perfectly, of course. And you don't get to, even with 25 years, you don't get that moment if it's in episode 1. Right. I don't even know if you get that moment in episode 4 or 5. Waiting as long as he did, like I said.
Was it 16 or 17? 16, I think he came back.
I think it was 16.
Yeah, something like that.
So like, it is, you just have to, it's beyond being patient at that point.
That's exactly right. It's Lynch messing with us.
I think so. But I think the frustrating thing for me is that, okay, so we're gonna spend time with Dougie, but like I said, there's a lot of like intrigue around what Dougie was into and stuff like that. But Dougie as a character doesn't evolve. Like over those 16 episodes, he's just this sort of dunce that is played for laughs and sometimes legitimately funny.
Sure.
For sure. But we don't grow with him at all. We learn more about the shady dealings and the shady past, and we learn more around him and about him, but he doesn't grow or evolve at all. So that becomes really just tries the patience even more.
Well, the other thing is, since we're not in the Black Lodge in Las Vegas, right? This is supposed to be the real world. Who in their right mind would say, okay, the original Dougie we saw with Jade, who talked fine, he talked perfectly fine, he seemed different hair, different body type, and Cooper are the same person, especially Janie E. You mean to tell me a wife can't tell the difference between those two men? Maybe she liked Cooper better, I guess, is what it was, right?
Yeah.
Dougie Coop. I mean, there's no comparison between those two. The haircuts, the body weight, the ability to talk. The original Dougie talked fine when we heard him talk to Jade. So
Right.
the idea that was just accepted by everybody, oh, this must be Dougie, this is the way Dougie is, it's just that, because it wasn't the Black Lodge when that was happening. That was Las Vegas.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, you can kind of get by with that for a couple episodes.
Yeah.
But not,
you know, suspension and disbelief, all that. But
yeah.
but yeah, they ran out the clock on it.
So I think we're getting close to an hour. We'll go ahead and somewhere closes for today. We will be back every so often, maybe once or twice a month, to do Twin Peaks Live, Twin Peaks Season 4. Now, Twin Peaks Season 4 is the name of the Facebook group that we have. You just search for it on Facebook. And also on Twitter, it's Twin Peaks _4, which is Twin Peaks Season 4. At this point, what do you think the possibility is that we will see Season 4? I don't think we're going to see a film, because the reaction of Season 2 produced Fire Walk With Me. We don't have that situation anymore. So a film, I don't think so. Maybe a shorter TV series for Season 4.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the possibility exists over the next year or so, hearing something about it? An announcement.
I don't know, but that's a good question. I think anything's possible. That's another part of the ending of Season 3, where regardless of my reaction or interpretation of it, I feel like, well, so is David Lynch like sticking his landing? Is he happy to like draw the curtain on the world of Twin Peaks, or is he trying to, does he have more places to go with it? I.e. a fourth season.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
if I worked for Netflix, I would be working on it.
Well, they have said that they would do whatever David Lynch wants to do.
I think if I, like some of these Amazon Prime, Netflix, other, venues that are available now and seem to be spending lots of money putting out great series, wouldn't it be fun?
Well, I think it would
sure.
hopefully it would probably stay at Showtime. They seemed to do a pretty good job the first time around. I don't know why he'd switch unless they didn't want to do it, but they said they would. The president said he would do it. I mean, here's the thing.
Well, why wouldn't they?
We're not going to wait another 25 years because David's going to be dead.
Please. Yeah, really.
So if we have to do a GoFundMe to get him oxygen or whatever, because he's still smoking cigarettes, we got to take that into consideration. I think the possibility exists, which is the reason I started Twin Peaks Season 4 Facebook group, that we will hear something in an announcement in the next year or so. Now, here's the thing. All these actors and actresses are getting older. They're dying. I mean, we lost, who did we lose this time? We lost the trailer park guy.
Lady.
We lost...
Right.
Log
Harry
lady.
Dean Stanton. We lost Catherine Coulson.
Right, Catherine.
Yeah.
For sure. And even Michael Onking, who's not dead.
But we didn't get him back, which was kind of surprising.
Declined to participate, which, sure, I mean, it is a job, and sometimes my understanding he's retired and
In Hawaii somewhere.
As a viewer, it was sad to not see Sheriff Truman. And it was great to have a different Sheriff Truman.
Right.
More a doppelganger of a different sort.
Right. So remember when Mr. C was in to see Sheriff Truman, and he got the drop on him with the gun, and Lucy shot Mr. C in the back, killed him.
Right.
So what did Cooper do this time? Lucy killed Mr. C, and the guy with the green glove killed Bob. So Cooper was kind of muted, if nothing else. I mean, when Cooper finally came back, he didn't really accomplish. He went back in time and did that whole Fire Walk With Me scene with Laura and tried to get her out of there. And it looked like it was successful, because they showed the first episode and the body disappearing on the beach, and then they showed, that was the biggest thing. And then also we've got Carrie Page.
Yeah.
So it seems like it succeeded, but...
Well, I think that, yeah, removing the kind of reconfiguration of the final episode, Cooper didn't take a lot of action in the real world in season 3. But I think Cooper's story is one of, battling the Black Lodge.
Yes.
And like Hawk says in season, I don't know, 1 or 2, the bit about if you go into the Black Lodge with imperfect courage, you'll be defeated. I'm
right. Yes.
Destroying the line there, but you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for me, when season 2 ends, like the sort of lesson of, Cooper is getting punished because while he is heroic, there might have been a little bit of hubris in what he was taking on. So season 3 becomes the sort of long-awaited triumph over the Black Lodge for Cooper, and the that sort of triumph isn't clean. He comes back to Earth as Dougie for a long time, but he's ultimately triumphant in that domain. And then the last episode.
Right. So Cooper, I'm not sure. Season 3, he just seemed like he was muted to me. He didn't really, when you say hubris, I'm not sure. He never tried to rescue Laura Palmer in season 1 and 2. She was already dead. He didn't try to rescue her. He didn't go into the Black Lodge to rescue her. But in season 3, when he finally came back at the end, he seemed like he thought he could rescue her. I don't think that he was... Didn't he get some ideas from the firemen? I mean, I don't think Cooper got these ideas on his own. He didn't just develop them, say, I'm going to be a big hero, I'm going to rescue Laura. Somebody had to tell him, or the firemen, remember at the beginning?
Yeah.
He had to tell him, he had to do the time travel somehow. He didn't do it on his own. So it was ineffective. Or it was effective as far as resetting the timeline, it seemed like, because we saw Carrie Page and we saw Laura's body disappear from the first episode. So we saw those two things. So those two things seemed to me that he did succeed there, but as far as resetting the timeline, but that's not necessarily good. Right? Because Carrie Page had that dead body sitting in her chair. Remember that guy?
Oh, yeah, right.
The bloated dead body. I mean, not necessarily good. Yeah, he might have saved her from that fate, but now she's got another fate. So at the very last scene, of course, she's at the Palmer house. She's not remembering anything until she hears her mother's calling her. And then it appears she remembers.
Chilling.
And then, whatever.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the curse of unintended consequences.
Right. Right.
Everything you said. Yeah. If Cooper did receive some information from the firemen and find a way to reset the timeline. I mean, that's kind of at the core of every time travel story ever is. You've gone back and you've fixed one thing,
absolutely,
but now you've broken
the butterfly.
You've created, Yeah, exactly.
No, I agree. I mean, who hasn't watched the science fiction when you try to reset a timeline to unintended consequences? Exactly. But like I said, he wasn't trying to rescue her in season 1 and 2. There was no Cooper rescuing Laura Palmer. He was investigating her murder.
For sure, yeah. And
he tried to rescue Annie, but that was after when she was taken in the Black Lodge, of course, by Wyndham Earle. Mm. But look, what's amazing about Twin Peaks? We're talking about it now, 2 years after the episode first aired. I think it was 2 years ago in May. And we're talking about it now. People, I was watching before Twitter and Facebook and stuff during the first 25 years, LynchNet. I'd go on there every once in a while to see what was going on, any new information, whatever, following along the best you could on the internet. And we've been doing this for 27, 28 years now from this darn series.
Yeah, definitely made an impact. Still making one.
It absolutely is.
Well, it's been fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, it is fun talking today, and yeah, just continuing to kind of dive into that world.
So I know one time that I'm absolutely going to be going live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter / Periscope. If they make an announcement about it, I will be on within 1 minute. If there's any kind of a tweet from Lynch and Frost, coincidental, if they team up again. I mean, some people thought that Lynch directed perhaps too much in season 3. I mean, I think he works best with another person helping him edit or helping him direct. I think as a team, I mean, Fire Walk With Me, he didn't have Frost, but he had, I forget what the guy's name is.
Yeah.
That did it anyway. He had somebody else helping him with editing and directing and stuff. So. Yeah,
well, I think, and that's another, technologically things are a lot easier to achieve now. Even in the sense of, the amount of not just editing and post production, but even a fair amount of visual effects that you can do, on a desktop computer, versus kind of a major VFX house handling some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
25 years ago. And I think that shows up a lot in season 3. Which is interesting. And I agree with you. I think that having, while I love David Lynch and what he does, I think having Mark Frost, that is a potent and required element of Twin Peaks, because it's the combination of what they both bring to it that I think is really compelling.
Yeah, I think that a balancing act works, even though he apparently wasn't as involved with season 3 as he was with season 1 and 2. Frost, I mean, because Lynch just took over. I mean,
I thought Frost was pretty well involved in season 3. He shows up in it.
He was involved with the writing initially, but then he left to do his book. Left it up to Lynch to finish things, and Lynch was directing all 18 episodes, so he had hands-on. He was talking about shades of lipstick. He was doing this and that, and he was so hands-on that he did things. So I think it was more, for better or for worse, I think Lynch was more of the director and stuff, the chief person in season 3. Because he was not going to let season 2 happen again to him, for sure. What happened with ABC. That's one of the things they probably were arguing about initially. He quit and then he came back. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I thank you both for stopping in today. We will have, just if anybody wants to follow along, you can follow along on Twitter if you like Twitter, Twin Peaks _4. On Facebook, Twin Peaks Season 4. We have a small, dedicated group there. As a matter of fact, Sabrina Sutherland's on our group. She joined back in the early days. She's a member. Yeah, she's a member. So we're just going to have a small group there. But we will do these live things every once in a while. We'll announce them there, of course, and on YouTube. I'm not sure if YouTube, what's going on YouTube. I see it's there. Usually there's more activity. But it seems like we got most activity on Facebook, so that's interesting. That's why I stream to all 3. So so join the group if you want to have a conversation. We're going to be doing these until season 4 is announced. Now I have no way of knowing this.
What year is it?
Exactly. What year is it? I think Lynch doesn't have the time to wait 25 years. Not that he waited 25 years to begin with. I think he was done with it in Fire Walk With Me, and then it just happened to be ideas start coming in his head. And he even said that the Laura Page storyline has not left his consciousness. That's the one storyline that he kind of like to see going or whatever. He said that, I think, in 2017. So I think that's where season 4, if it starts, will start with the Carrie Page line. But who the heck knows? Who the heck knows? Well, one thing I want to ask you, if you had a friend, it was a good friend of yours, and she said, I'm dying, and she was alone in a cabin in the woods, would you just say, oh, I'm sorry about that, and just not do anything? It seems to me I would at least call 911, or I would go there to be with her for the last moments of her life. But they just left poor Margaret in the woods by herself to die by herself. Oh,
right.
That's what I'm referring to. I thought that was kind of strange.
I was trying to figure out, yeah. Well, I think she had a relationship with her log. You know, and I don't know. There's probably more we just weren't.
You know, maybe they couldn't get there or something. I don't know. But I always thought that was kind of strange that Hawk didn't say, let me come out there with you, Margaret. I'll spend some time with you the last moments of your life so you don't die alone. I thought that was kind of sad. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for coming in today. Thanks, everybody who's watching and who will watch. Twin Peaks Season 4 on Facebook, Twin Peaks _4 on Twitter, and you can keep up to date with what we're doing. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks.